Yet. I am a number, counted 13 times a day. Flashlight to the face at 3 a.m. Thanks, I don't need REM sleep after all. No, I'm not dead. Yet. 10 a.m. How can you lose me at work, officer? Everyone knows that I work. Everyone knows where I work. Everyone knows I only miss work for writing class. I don't even go to medical unless I'm hacking up a piece of lung. No, I'm not dead. Yet. Of course I got on the count sheet. I've been doing this for 20 years. That's at least 16 more than you. Which of us do you think screwed that up? Institutional recount. I am a number counted 14 times today. Back to work, finished the day, then came home for a family moment with my crew. Only a moment then. Count time. I'm a small box on that piece of paper, in the sheet protector, on your clipboard, erroneously crossed out with a China marker. I'm no more than that. Not to them, not to you. But no, I'm not dead. Yet.
The voice you just heard was of a woman named Jax. Jax is serving a life sentence at Mabel Bassett Correctional Center, Oklahoma's largest prison for women. Over 1,400 women are there right now. Every Tuesday night, I and 3 other volunteers from Poetic Justice go to Mabel Bassett and we live poetry with the women there. We write, we laugh, we cry, and we share life together. Does writing have the power to change someone's life, even someone in prison? When the voiceless one finds her voice, she finds herself. And in the middle of the most unsafe place, prison, hope is born. And with hope comes power to change. I'd like you to meet some of the poet warriors that we see every week at Mabel Bassett and at the Tulsa County Jail. Tina is 21 years old and is facing 40 years in prison. She's a class encourager. When the women share their poems, Tina says things like, "That was amazing. You just said something in words that we all feel." Or, "You were totally honest and that took courage. Thank you." Tina wrote a poem about the only safe place she had ever known in her life, and it was in the trees behind the home she grew up in. And she described it as an opening that smells like wet dirt. It wasn't till she wrote a letter to her younger self that we understood for the first time why the only safe place she had ever known was an opening that smells like wet dirt. She wrote, "Dear baby, your mama's drinking is going to get worse before it gets better. Your daddy will come home. He won't be clean, but he will be home. When he's fighting mommy, you have to be a big girl and hide your sister under the bed to keep her safe. You know when mommy and daddy are fighting to stay out of it. At the same time, you know it isn't fair when mommy can't see that she's about to get hit. So you have to be brave and stand in front of her and beg daddy to stop. Ariel will be in prison for a long time. She struggles with depression, self-hatred, and regret. She told me that writing is the strongest weapon she has to defeat the demons that torment her. Ariel is a cutter. The Mayo Clinic describes cutting as non-suicidal self-injury, the act of deliberately harming the surface of your body in order to cope with emotional pain, intense anger, and frustration. Cutting is a serious problem with incarcerated women. Ariel wrote, "What it's like to be a cutter, for those of you who don't know. It's like dancing ballet with pain. It's falling in love with the asphyxiation of your agony. It's finding yourself in the hollow clutches of pulsating lunacy. It's finally feeling something real and being petrified it will go away. It's making sure it doesn't. It's watching your skin open up and letting go of the breath you've been holding. You're sweating, you're shaking, you're fine. You become docile, and the light of your eyes returns to hide the intimacy of your failure. It's knowing you're being reduced to scar tissue, but believing the lie that pain will always be beauty because it's the only thing that stays the same. Ariel has a top bunk in her cell with a very small window. And she told me that if it was just the right time of the month and a clear night, she could see the moon. She also told me that prisoners aren't allowed outside at night, and she hadn't seen the stars in years. She wrote an ode to the moonlight. I see you there illuminating the obsidian sky, liquid rays of silver light glistening in the darkness. I miss you there when you're gone, dwindled forcefully, inevitably into nothing. But such is your life and mine too, until we both become full again, incandescent and alive. Lisa is a Native American of the absentee Shawnee tribe. Her safe place was the Shawnee dance ground where she would go with her family twice a year. She wrote a poem called Tatakwa no Me Na, which is Shawnee for the dance ground. Tatakwa no Me Na, down a dirt road so winding, away from the outside world, alone and hiding. A dance ground is alive and breathing life into its people. Fire dancing as if choreographed by God. Wood popping, smoke penetrating all in its path. The long, sturdy table filled with food galore. Kids laughing and playing till they can't play no more. Family and friends catching up since the last dance. Making the ground smile by fulfillment. I feel like I've won the lottery to be born into this. Tatakwa no Me Na, I am home. Finally, I'd like you to meet Olympia. Olympia was in one of our first classes at the Tulsa County Jail, and when we came in the room, she was sitting in the back, arms crossed, exuding anger, staring at me directly in the eyes. We were writing that night about stereotypes people have of us and stereotypes we have of each other. When it was time to share, Olympia walked to the front of the room, stood, paused, looked each of us directly in the eyes, and then said, "What it's like to be a flamboyantly gay Latino man trapped in the body of a sardonic black woman." Well, the room transformed, and Olympia was no longer angry. Olympia was sentenced to prison, and I would go visit her, and we exchanged letters. Olympia is a gifted poet. Last November, I and another volunteer went to pick her up when she was released from prison. Olympia is now on our board of directors, and she's our most passionate advocate. She is also my friend. Fact: the United States has less than 5% of the world's population, yet over 25% of the world's prison population. Fact: Oklahoma, over the last 25 years, has had the second highest incarceration rate in the country. Fact: Oklahoma incarcerates more women per capita than anywhere else in the country, than anywhere else in the world. Fact: over 90% of incarcerated women in Oklahoma have been victims of some kind of sexual or physical abuse in their lives. Fact: the majority of incarcerated women in Oklahoma are nonviolent first-time offenders. Fact: the majority of incarcerated women in Oklahoma are mothers. In a data-driven world, telling someone that writing has the power to change someone's life, even someone in prison, can sound naive or even ridiculous. But Paulo Freire, in his book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, writes, human existence cannot be silent. To speak a true word is to transform the world. It is by speaking their word that people transform it and achieve significance as human beings. Fact, the last chapter of all of our lives has not yet been written. We start every Poetic Justice class by asking the women how we can make the space we're in a safe place to write and to share our writing. And in every class, in every prison, and every jail, they always come up with the same rules. Respect each other. No judgment. What we say here stays here. They call it the Las Vegas rule. And respect ourselves. Then we breathe. Always a good idea, right? But we practice some intentional breathing as a way to reset from the place we've been in to the place we are now. Then comes an icebreaker. One of my very favorite icebreakers is, if you could have one thing to eat for the rest of your life, what would it be? Well, when we asked that class at the Tulsa County Jail, which is a temporary holding place for most of the women before they're either sentenced to prison or released, they almost always answer with what they want to eat right now. Fast food, a burger, French fries, pizza. When we ask that same question at Mabel Bassett, where most of the women have been for years, they answer with the entire menu and how they would cook it, who they would eat with, and where they would eat. So a steak's no longer just a steak, it becomes a prime cut of a ribeye steak, lightly seasoned with salt and pepper, grilled to a perfect medium rare over hickory smoke, served with a crisp cold salad and a dry red wine. Then we start to write. We introduce the writing, we brainstorm on the whiteboard, and we begin writing. And the room transforms. It no longer feels like we're volunteers and prisoners, we're just women sharing life together. And something even more inexplicable happens. The whole world seems to compress into this room and into this space. And in this world, we are all free. Words become more than words as they're written, erased, and written again until they become life and power and truth. The room is utterly silent except for the sound of pencils writing. And it's a sacred place. When it's time to share the poems, women have 3 choices after they share their poems. They can ask for questions, comments, or silence, or whatever. They almost always say whatever. Recently at Mabel Bassett, one woman got up to share her poem, and it began, what it's like to have a mother who is a drug addict and committed suicide. As she read, she began to weep. When she finished, woman after woman came up to her. One said, I'm a recovering addict. Another woman said, my mother was an addict. Finally, the last woman came up and she said, I am a recovering addict. I have been clean for 5 years and I have children. I'm going to be released in 2 months. And I realized for the first time tonight what my addiction has done to my children. I will never go back to it again. Does writing have the power to change someone's life, even someone in prison? Yes. Yes, it does, because when the voiceless one finds her voice, she finds herself. And in the middle of the most hopeless, unsafe place, prison, hope is born. And with hope comes the power to change. We end every class with a short meditation, and as we end tonight, I'd like to ask you to step into the meditation with me. So get comfortable in your seats, and if you would, close your eyes. I want you to listen inside your memory for the sound of someone's voice you haven't heard in a long time. It could be you've lost track of this person. It could be that they're no longer alive. Their voice is still alive in your memory. Can you hear it? If you heard that voice in a dark room, would you recognize it? What about if there were several voices speaking? Would you know that voice? What is this person saying to you? I love you. I miss you. I am so proud of you. Now open your eyes. You have a voice like the voice that you heard that is unique. No one has ever had your voice before. No one will ever have your voice again. When your voice becomes words that you write, no one's ever written those words before, and no one will ever write them in that same way again. Your voice matters. Your words matter. They have power to change you, other people, and the world. Thank you.